Reapers. Hello, Cyber Reapers. And Happy New Year. To start off 2026, today I would like to talk about a book. Oh yeah, wherever you are, whenever you are, let's talk about it. So, yeah, just getting right into it because I've been sitting on kind of thinking about this book for about a week now. And it's super good in terms of the writing. I think this is probably, out of all the books I've read by Sonora Reyes, this is probably the best, best well-written one. And all of them are good. So, today I'm talking about The Golden Boy's Guide to Bipolar by Sonora Reyes. If you've seen my video about, hold on, I'll think of it. The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School, also by Sonora Reyes. This is the companion novel to that book. So, back in The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School, I would read that before reading this one, just to be clear. Back then, the focus was primarily on the main character, Yamilet. She was kind of dealing with being a closeted lesbian, and also one of the few brown people at a Catholic school that she just started going to school there. And she just started going to school there with her brother Caesar, or Cesar, and he kind of got in trouble at their old school for getting into fights, and you figure out that that's because he's also closeted, he's also queer, and, so, that book, it has a lot of heart, it has a lot of shenanigans, fun, comedic moments, and it's really heartwarming in general to see how Yamilet grows over the course of the book. And now we get to this one. We get to The Golden Boy's Guide to Bipolar. And this is about Cesar. He's the main character in this one. And is this just, it's a ride. It's a wild ride. So, yeah, I'm just gonna say that right now. This book gets into a lot of heavy topics, especially around mental illness or mental conditions. And so, if that's not your thing, that's okay. But I'll just give you a heads up right now that I am gonna be talking about some of his experiences. I'm not gonna dive deep into the emotions of it, but I'm just gonna kind of lightly touch on things so that you're aware that the book has it. So yeah. So this whole book has a lot of, Cesar, he has a turbulent time. He's going through a lot of ups and downs, especially when it comes to his queer identity. He's closeted for the most part, except for his family knowing and some of his friends, including his ex-boyfriend, who he still has feelings for, and it's reciprocated, but because of mental illness stuff, they kind of haven't been together for a little bit, and they're maybe about ready to start mending things. But also, Cesar is very much Catholic. He strongly believes in God, and he is struggling with that because of his queer identity. And then on top of that, intersect in his life, all those different factors, it's a lot. And it's delved, the book delves deep into it and does just such a good job. So, yeah. How do I even start? I think this book in particular shows a lot of, like, what other people can do to a person's mind unintentionally. Because, like, Cesar, the main, like, the start of the book has a lot of internal conflict, but it has to do with his, like, external shame. And, like, when he's talking with his atheist therapist who's giving him advice versus his dad giving him unsolicited advice, or his Catholic priest giving him unsolicited, well, no, that one was solicited advice. However, it was just very bad advice. And just, like, you know, the Catholic side being very, like, no, you're making the wrong choice by being gay. And that's, the therapist, though, kind of, like, tries talking Cesar through, like, okay, well, is it really a choice, and is it really a bad thing? And just, it's a lot of, Cesar taking other people's opinions and running with them, and he doesn't quite notice that that's what he's doing. Especially because he experiences, you know, periods of, like, high feeling like he's untouchable, unstoppable, he can do anything, and then periods of low depression, he doesn't feel like getting out of bed or doing anything, he feels horrible. And actually the whole time he feels horrible, just in different ways. And that his experiences in particular with coming to terms with, oh, these symptoms actually do sound like this thing. When I say this thing, I mean bipolar disorder. And I don't mean that flippantly, I mean, like, I can see it being difficult to just, like, to grow up thinking that there are certain, like, mental conditions that are, like, that people consider as, like, crazy in a derogatory way. Not in a reclamation way, I mean derogatory. And it's, a lot of people like to think about it as, like, well, no, obviously I'm not part of that, because I'm not crazy. But it's not being born with something or having something develop in you that wasn't your conscious choice doesn't inherently make you bad, and it does not inherently have to be a bad thing. There are certainly setbacks. There's a reason it's, like, mental illness or disability. It's, like, it's hard. It really is hard, and I'm speaking as someone with dissociative identity disorder, one of those things that gets classified as quote-unquote crazy in a derogatory way. And, like, yeah, there are setbacks, largely, though, because of other people not understanding what it is, and other people not being understanding of, like, some of the symptoms, like my memory gaps, that kind of thing. But overall, like, I'm able to do things. I'm able to, like, live my life in a way other people don't. And in some ways, that's kind of fun. I'm not saying it's sunshine and rainbows. But given that I've put in so much work on my journey to have such a healthy system, I'm now getting to actually see some of the positive sides to my mind being different than other people. But it takes a lot of work in a lot of people, you know. In a lot of cases, you have to put in the time to be able to understand, okay, this is how my mind works, versus how, like, other people, their minds work, and what are things that are maybe causing detriment to my life, and how do I kind of adjust because of that. Because yeah, like, for example, I'm on medication, so that I don't feel the really low lows. I mean, it's a little bit separate, it's not DID specific, but having to do more with depression and anxiety. I take medication for that so that at night I don't start spiraling in my thoughts. And I notice that it helps because every so often I'll forget to take my medication on time, and so like a few hours later I'll go, wait a minute, I'm thinking too anxiously, I gotta go take my medicine, I'm pretty sure I missed that. And then I go and find, oh yeah, I didn't take it. So medication can really help. That's another thing this book tackles, is stigma around medication. Because you know, there's this idea that medication will change you, will make you into a zombie. That kind of stigma of like thinking, oh, I won't be myself anymore. Thing is, yeah, it does change you, but it helps. Like, I don't want to be depressed. I don't want to be spiraling in anxious thoughts. And that's really what the medication that I take changes for me. It doesn't make me a zombie. It doesn't make me feel like I'm not me. It just makes me feel like a better me, or a more healthy, happier me. And that's what I want. So that's, you know, it's beneficial for me. And that's the whole idea of medication. Some medications, though, you might find actually do make you, like, more tired than usual or something, and that's okay. It just means, alright, if I don't want to be this tired, maybe I try a different medication, see if that helps me be more relaxed but not tired, you know? So that, this book covers that. I'm mostly sticking to, like, themes and topics this book covers, by the way, because I think you really have to experience this book to get into everything that happens with Caesar, because it's one thing after another. Is just, it spirals. If you read this book, prepare for the book to just keep spiraling and spiraling downward, in the sense of, like, everything gets worse and worse and worse, because Caesar keeps making mistake after mistake after mistake. And the thing is, I don't blame him for it, because he explains his thoughts so clearly in such a way that I go, yep, I recognize that sign of mental illness or a mental condition. I recognize that sign of depression. I recognize that sign. Some of these things I've felt myself. It's so very accurate to my experience in the past. I think this book is a really, really well done representation of, at least, having the intersectionality of so many different parts of, like, your life, and having a mental condition or mental illness on top of that just makes everything so much harder to deal with. And just, I think this book does so well with that. I don't know personally about, like, if the bipolar aspects are depicted in the way that a bipolar person would go, like, yep, that sounds exactly right, or very, like, resonating with their experience. But I do know that, at least for the other parts that are more general, I'm like, yep, that resonates with me. So I think this book is a really, really good introduction to getting into that, to trying to understand somebody with their mind actively working against them. And it's a good, positive example of seeing someone work through that. Because yes, this book does eventually resolve in a way that is positive. And I quite was so satisfying after the entire book just being Caesar just getting worse and worse and worse and feeling worse and worse and feeling more isolated. He kept pushing people away, and even though he kept pushing people away, the people who were important to him, even though they were hurt and they made sure that he knew that the consequences of his actions were, apparent, they still love him. They still love him all throughout the book. They don't understand why he's acting the way he is, but they know there's something more going on than what they can understand. And so they try their absolute best to do everything they can to be there for him, and that's such an important thing to see, I think, in fiction and reality, because that is possible. That is something you can do for someone, even if you don't understand what they are going through. You can still be there, and you can say, like, hey, this hurt me, what you did hurt me, but I'm still here for you. I know that there's something going on beyond what I can understand, but I need you to communicate with me so that I can understand. And just, I think there's so much really that can be resolved with communication, and I love when books show that. Especially when the communication is hard, because there are so many tough conversations that people are going to have in life, and it's just, in general, for conflict resolution, it's a lot easier if the parties involved can kind of not put aside, but like kind of shelve their emotions, just kind of address that they are there. Like, yes, you can feel angry, you can feel sad, you can feel like hurt, and you can acknowledge that, but maybe just like kind of don't allow that to escalate the conversation in such a way that it turns into a very heated argument, but instead address those emotions and try to try to just not let them like fuel your voice or fuel your behavior in that exact moment, because then you can really get to the heart of like what's going on, I feel like, a lot better. But it does require like people practicing that. I've had to practice that, and so it just like, I feel like seeing examples of that is super important, and this book does that. Now, it takes a while for Caesar to open up, but eventually he does, and feels like it takes so long, but it's so satisfying when it does finally happen. So I'm just gonna kind of shout out real quick to the characters. I absolutely loved Caesar. Sorry, I'm trying to say his name the way that he said in the book is the correct way. Because I think, like, Caesar as in Caesar salad is how, like, the white people at the Catholic school referred to him, but the way that he feels more at home with, I think, is the Spanish pronunciation, which, if I am remembering correctly from when I looked it up, it should be like Caesar. The emphasis is on the E. Caesar, I think. Hopefully that's correct. Feel free to correct me, though. What was I saying about him, though? Just that I love him. He's a great character to follow, especially because following the first book, you know how, like, you learn to care about him in the first book, in The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School. So going into the second book, I think you're a lot more forgiving of his behavior. Forgiving sounds like a weird word for this. You're more like, I think you're kind of going, oh wow, wait, I know you care about the people around you, so you pushing them away like this, you genuinely think this is actually, like, good for them, huh? So, and then the people around him, I absolutely love the characters. Well, I mean, the ones giving him good advice. I don't like his dad. He gives bad advice. I don't like the priest. Also gives bad advice. Really, Caesar was doing great up until those two gave him bad advice. But yeah, the people who actually love him and care about him, I love them. Jamal, who is Caesar's love interest, I love him. He tries so hard to be like accepting of like Caesar's supposed boundaries and the things that Caesar supposedly wants or says he wants, which he doesn't really want. But Jamal's kind of going, okay, I can't read your mind. I can't understand what you're going through right now. All I know is you're pushing me away and being mean about it. So I am hurt, but I'm gonna try to move on because that's what you're telling me to do. And that hurts to read. But at the same time, again, this book is such a good example of like a lot of situations. And Yamilet, of course, Caesar's sister, and his mom just doing everything they possibly can to try to understand what's going on with him. But like when they are kind of going, we really don't know what to do, they, ask for help from other family members. And fortunately, at least one of them are able to actually get through to Caesar. And just, yeah, the therapist character, I really liked her. And just, yeah, there were a lot of characters that I feel like were not as, they behaved in ways I didn't quite expect, and I quite enjoyed that. I think I'm not going to go too deep into that because it might give away some things about the first book, but just there are characters that are kind of expanded on, and I go, oh wow, that's neat. I was not expecting that. So, yeah. Oh, I just remembered one of the characters that they expanded on in the first book. In the second book. I completely forgot about her entire role, which is kind of wild because she did have a decent amount of like involvement in this book. But at the same time, I don't really like her. I think I kind of understood a little bit of what she was like going through, yet at the same time, I'm still kind of going, I don't know if I'm ready to like accept her behavior, even if she's like trying to move on from it. I don't know. I could see in the future her healing more though, based on where the ending of the book ended up. So, oh, and of course in terms of representation, in case you're looking for a book that has a cast that's like primarily people of color, and there's also queer characters, Latinx characters, or Latin, and like Caesar himself is bisexual, he's brown, he is Latin, he is mentally ill as well, and there's a decent amount of characters who are mentally ill as well. What else? The rest of my notes on this book are pretty much just, I've already covered the majority of it, of talking about just how important this book is to kind of a basic understanding of like, oh, this is the kind of behavior you might see from someone who is depressed, or has bipolar disorder. So I think it's really important for people who are both who think they might have a mental illness, and also for those who don't necessarily think they do, but somebody else they know might. I feel like there are things about this book that will probably resonate with a lot of people without them expecting it to. And so I just think overall this is a very, very good book, very important read. I mean, it's kind of why I'm starting it off for like this year, starting off 2026 with a healthy dose of reading books that have a lot of, kind of tough topics. But it's, I think it's super important. And especially because it really does end up resolving in a way that I think is very healthy. It shows that even though it's very difficult to get out of like cyclical behavior, that it is possible. And even after doing a lot of things to push other people away, if you really make the effort to resolve things with them, then you can go really far off what you consider off the rails. You can really go push people away. But if you sincerely make the effort to reach out back to them and try to mend things, then yes, it is possible to mend your relationships with people you push away or people who you think don't want anything to do with you anymore, that kind of thing. You just have to be, actually earnest about it. You have to be sincere and actually put in the work. That's super important. Especially because there's somebody I know who it would be so nice if she put in the work. But I can't trust her because it's been like pretty much my entire life. She has not been somebody who I can trust. And again, it looks like she might be actually finally turning herself around, turning her life around, and then she falls back into the same behavior. And I do genuinely think there's something like, I think she has some kind of mental illness or mental condition that I don't understand. And if she doesn't actually try to if she doesn't try to go to therapy, which she was court ordered to go to therapy and she didn't. Well, she did, but then she stopped and anyway, that's all just to say it would be amazing if she actually did want to have a relationship with me, but I just can't trust that she doesn't want to use me. And so she would really have to put in a genuine effort for maybe about 5 to 10 years before I would actually fully trust her, But I do think it's genuinely possible. I have not shut out the possibility completely, she hasn't completely burned that bridge, because part of me still does care about her, and I genuinely do want to see her succeed, and she's so smart, but I feel like she's just not putting in the effort to get herself back on her feet, no matter what amount of help she receives. It just doesn't seem to happen. And so this book resonated with me not only on my personal struggles with mental illness, but also me on the outside. Me kind of going yep, I can completely see myself on the outside as well, of there's very little that someone could do to completely push me away to where it's irreparable damage, to a relationship. Especially if I understand there's something, going on mentally that I don't quite understand. So just in case maybe you're listening to this and going, well, I don't feel like I can actually repair this relationship with somebody. Maybe you can, or maybe it's possible, and maybe it's not on you. Maybe it's you're waiting for somebody else, kind of like me, to do the initiative, because it's not. I don't feel like it's on me to do the initiative here, because I don't feel like I need to connect back with this person that I was talking about, because they're just too toxic for my life. But if they want to take the steps out of their cyclical toxic behavior, then I am open to them being back in my life, you know? And if you're kind of like that, if you're like kind of hoping somebody does do that, then I feel like this book also could resonate to you for that and kind of offer a bit of hope. Now, do I think this person is actually going to ever take those steps? Not necessarily. I do think it would be rather silly for them to go their entire life behaving like this. But I don't know. If they refuse to accept help, then there's not really much I or anyone can do. So just like, I'm trying not to let it bother me, I guess, that I can't help. Because there are some situations that really you just can't do. You can't get things to work out exactly the way you want them to. And I'm not saying to give up on certain situations as much as I'm trying to say don't let it define your life if you can't help somebody out of their situation. Yeah, I guess that's all I'll say on that. And, yeah, that went a little more dark maybe than what you might want to start out with 2026. But at the same time, I think this book really is deep, and I think it's a good thing. So if you're in the mood for it, I highly recommend it. If not, maybe add it to your to-be-read list, or you can just come back to this video if you want a reminder of you are not alone. And starting off 2026, I want you to definitely know that you are not alone. No matter how it feels, you just aren't. There are too many people in the world for you to be alone, you know? You can go outside and people watch if you want. You can try to reach out to an old friend and just be like, hey, I thought about you today for such and such reason. Just wanted to let you know I'm thinking about you and hope you're doing okay. Or if you just want to read a book to connect to people that way, or go online, you know, just like there's not one way to connect to other people. And so I just hope you do your best to do it in a way that is healthy for you and ideally other people too. And yeah, let's start off this year. Let's start off this year in a good way, in a healthy way, you know. I guess that's all I have to say. So, thank you so much for listening. You're an awesome listener. And wherever you go next, whatever you do next, I hope that it is fun and or relaxing and or worthwhile to you. And ideally all three.